Leute, ich will jetzt einmal dieses Video gucken, und zwar habe ich gesehen, und zwar von Davo, ich kenne den nicht, der wurde mir vorgeschlagen, und zwar Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl Running on Nostalgia. Ich habe einige Videos zu Pokémon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl quasi hier auf dieser Liste, aber ich wollte das jetzt mal gucken, vor allem, weil es gerade nur 12 Minuten geht und dadurch brauche ich nicht so lange. Und, ja, auf geht's.
Making a game can be a daunting task. There's a certain expectation set when you do it. You've got to take a well-loved title and not only recreate it to that same standard, but improve upon it. Otherwise, why wouldn't people just go back and play the original?
True.
Probably because Nintendo delisted it from the fucking eShop. That's
True. Scheiße, Nintendo.
why. However, if there's just about any franchise that is the least deserving of a remaster, it's Pokemon.
Ohne Witz, ne? Ich verstehe halt Pokémon. Ich verstehe auch Leute nicht, die Pokémon-Remakes haben wollen, ne? Wofür willst du ein Pokémon-Remake? Es ist Pokémon! So stupid.
It's more or less like releasing a sequel. The series is already known for its lack of evolution over the course of decades, so the last thing it needs to be doing is
Ich mag seinen Akzent. Wollte ich kurz gesagt haben.
remaking what is essentially already a remake. I remember getting a comment on my rather forlorn video last year about the overall decline in innovation in the Pokemon franchise that said that the issue isn't nostalgia, but that the first Pokemon game you play is the best because not a lot has changed over the generations. And that comment is exactly right.
Ja, doch, der Kommentar hat eigentlich recht, weil die Leute es verwöhnt, weil die Leute scheiße sind.
So,
Gott, habt ihr gerade das Luxra gesehen? Das sah so kacke aus.
a Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl worth buying? Well,
Nein.
if like me you're a disillusioned 20-something that yearns to return to the simpler days when your life's biggest concern was coming to terms with the fact that Pokemon are not and never will be real, then I reckon you'll probably quite enjoy them. But are they innovative? No. Do they expand upon the original games mechanically in a major way? No. Are they particularly technically sound? Fuck no. Although I won't
Ich habe keinen Plan, wer der Typ ist, aber ich habe bis 1 Minute 20 von dem geguckt, aber der hat mich mega hart gecatcht. Ich glaube, ich lasse ein Abo da. Ich habe keinen Plan, wer das ist, aber ich feiere den gerade irgendwie mega.
pretend like I didn't enjoy playing this game, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are far from an anomaly in the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, Game Freak, and now ILCA's business model.
ILCA, nicht
Keep
Ilka,
doing the same shit
ILCA.
that we've been doing over and over for years and make plenty of money doing it. But putting aside the rant
Nee, der macht ja Klicks, Lukas.
that I've already covered about Pokemon's lack of innovation, for now at least, I'd like to actually talk about the remakes, in particular what's different from the games that they've remade. And if there's a word that could be best
Ach du
used...
Scheiß. So sieht Gyarados aus? What? Nein. Ey, nein. 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 Ich glaube, ich kotze gleich.
describe them, it would be inconsistent in many different ways. But perhaps the most apparent is the inconsistencies between game mechanics that were changed according to newer generations or revived as they were in
Wie konnte man Nummer 10 das noch antun? Holy shit, Nummer 10!
the original Gen 4 games. For starters, HM slaves are gone, as they are in the more recent titles. You don't actually need a Pokemon with a specific hidden move in your party to be able to use it. You simply need to have found the HM for it, which are now just ordinary TMs, and have the right gym badge. I very much like this change. You don't have to sacrifice a spot in your party for some dumbass Bibarel that knows 4 HMs and have to waste moves on Pokemon that you actually use, or feel compelled to take Piplup as your starter because Surf is actually a good move. But despite this, TMs are single use again, even though they've been able to be used infinitely since Generation 5, perhaps in some vain attempt to recreate an authentic Generation 4 experience, despite them, you know, changing several other mechanics anyway. Granted, you now get multiple copies
Oh mein Gott, sie fand Tina scheiße aus. What the actual shit? Das ist ja mega creepy. Ich finde das Spiel so hässlich. Ich finde dieses Spiel so scheiße hässlich.
of the HM and Gym TMs, and many can be purchased several times, as well as all of them technically being able to be earned again in the Grand Underground. It's still a weird case of embracing a more user-friendly change in one way and ignoring it in another. Another thing that's been changed from the original is the untoggleable XP share from Sword and Shield, and I'm not terribly
Habt ihr gehört, den gibt's wohl auch in Legenden Arceus. In der reinen Theorie halt jetzt nicht mehr ganz so schlimm, weil dieser Experience Share, naja, was heißt Experience Share? Wenn ihr JRPGs so viel spielt wie ich, naja, eigentlich gibt es immer so eine EP-Teile. Alle Teammitglieder bekommen Erfahrung. Das ist in allen JRPGs. So mit dem großen Unterschied. Alle anderen JRPGs haben eine ganz andere Levelkurve. Und wenn Legenden Arceus auch eine ähnliche Levelkurve hat, dann kann das ein richtig gutes Spiel werden.
terribly happy about it. Unlike the original games, it's not an item and is just a constant XP and EV share to your entire party, even if they didn't participate in the fight. I know a lot of people like this change because it removes some grinding from the game, but RPGs like Pokemon need to find the right balance.
Ja.
If you have to sit there grinding for hours to beat...
Das ist der große Unterschied. Spiele wie Dragon Quest, Persona, eine rein Theorie eigentlich auch Xenoblade Chronicles, zumindest in den Erfahrungspunkten ganz gut geklappt, die schaffen das. Die schaffen das. Pokémon nicht. Pokémon schafft es einfach nicht, das zu ausbalancieren.
Each gym battle, you'll quickly get bored and play something less monotonous. But conversely, breezing through the game without needing to grind at all removes the challenge and the satisfaction from winning. But my major gripe with the new XP share system is that it disincentivizes rotating your team around for trainer battles. What I like about the older games is the need to more strategically send out Pokemon, not just because it has a super effective move, but to share around the XP pool, rather than just being able to use one or two of your team and level up the rest of your Pokemon along with them. Another feature from the new games that I'm also not a huge fan of is that Pokemon that have become friendly also get random bonuses throughout fights. They can sometimes endure hits, cure themselves of statuses, or will sometimes land bonus critical hits, which can prove incredibly annoying when you accidentally kill the legendary that you're trying to catch with one. This is nothing more than just an overpowered and RNG dependent buff for your team, and it makes the game even easier than it already is. And sure, I'm older than I was when I first played Pearl back in the day, but you can't argue that with the modern bonuses, the games are really, really easy. There was only one time in the entirety of the main story where I felt any semblance of a challenge at all, and it was against Cynthia. A big reason is the huge level difference between even the
Echt schlimme, hat echt die schlimmste Levelkurve aller Zeiten. Du bist permanent überlevelt, bis in Top 4, wo du unterlevelt bist. Ja, willkommen in Gen 4.
earlier Elite Four battles in the Champion fight.
Eigentlich sogar nicht mal. Normalerweise ist Gen 4 die ganze Zeit on par und dann bist du krass underlevelt. Also und dann bist du hier anscheinend die ganze overlevelt, dann underlevelt. Das macht's auch nicht besser.
Only just scraped through a perfect IV and EV trained bastards, despite breezing through the rest of the Elite Four, hardly breaking a sweat. For the entirety of the rest of the main story, I found myself horrendously overleveled because I dared to do some minimal grinding and perhaps spend some time checking out the Grand Underground. This new XP share is designed for the newer games, where trainer battles are far less frequent, but with this game having the abundant trainer battles from the original Diamond and Pearl, being underleveled is practically impossible. There's a fine line between making games more convenient and removing challenge and risk altogether. I don't think letting people use TMs multiple times makes the game as easy as it makes it a pain in the ass if you can only use it once. But I do think that handing XP out like it's going out of fashion and having these extra friendship battle bonuses without having any way to turn them off takes away a lot of the challenge and the effort. And that's not what only this game, but the entire franchise of Pokemon needs. Some difficulty toggles. I'm not convinced that adults make up the overwhelming majority of Pokemon's player base.
Wir alle wissen, pass auf, das ist immer ein großer Argument, ja, das Spiel ist einfach, ist ja auch für Kinder gemacht. Ich so, Bro, du spielst das Spiel auch selber, oder? Und wenn du in dem Spiel nicht nachdenken musst, ist es ja auch langweilig. Zum Beispiel finde ich halt, dass Pokémon X und Y auch leicht war. Aber ich konnte selber entscheiden, ob es leicht ist oder nicht, indem ich mir einfach den EP-Teil aus- oder anmache. Aber hier, jetzt, keine Ahnung. Ich habe einen Nuzlocke mit Level Cap gespielt und musste 12 Pokémon durchwechseln, um nicht zu überleveln und musste trotzdem Trainer ausweichen. Wie jetzt Game Freak sagen würde, ja, dann spiel doch nur mit einem einzigen Pokémon, dann kriegen die anderen keine Erfahrungspunkte.
Some people seem to think that they do, but we still make a very sizable portion of it. And even amongst the demographics, there are people that are looking for a more casual playthrough and those that are more endeared by the competitive side of the game. And when your audience is so diverse, you really need to be able to make your game as accessible as possible for all of the different people that enjoy it.
Yeah.
But ILCA, Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, and whoever else it is that's a part of the mess of organizations that have a stake in the games these days all seem to show no interest in doing this. The main story has become...
Ohne Witz, gebt uns einfach die Option. Also, es gibt einfach keinen Grund, es nicht ausschalten zu können. Ich hasse es.
Ultra easy mode, and there's only the taste of the battle system being properly engaging at the very end and in the post-game. So yeah, Pokemon probably should have a...
Und das ist auch, das mir richtig auf die Eier. Ne? Ich sag's immer wieder, ne? Wenn mir irgendwer von der Ecke kommt und sagt, ja, aber dann wird das richtig gut. Ich so, du kannst nicht erwarten, dass ich ein gottverschissenes 20-Stunden-Spiel spiele, damit das Spiel irgendwo Spaß macht. Ich spiele doch nicht 20 Stunden im Spiel, was scheiße ist, damit es dann Spaß macht. So bist du bescheuert. Das Postgame ist geil. Ich scheiße auf das Postgame. So, Bro, Du kannst nicht ein scheiß Spiel haben und dann ein gutes Postgame und sagen, das Spiel ist aber gut, ne? Also du musst nur extrem viel Kacke durchspielen. Das Spiel muss gut sein und das Postgame dann auch. So, wenn Leute mir mit Pokémon Dungeon X kommen, ja, aber das Postgame ist so schwierig. Ist mir scheißegal. Das Hauptgame war Kacke.
Hard mode for the main story, maybe where trainers actually have Pokemon a higher level than the wild Pokemon in the same round with them, or where the AI will actually use strategies or even swap out Pokemon when they're disadvantaged, at least outside of the Elite Four or the Battle Tower. Coming back to actual gameplay and mechanical changes to the game, I will say that Gen 4 has made a slightly awkward transition to the Switch when it comes.
Man sieht dann nebenbei die ganze Zeit, ne, dieses Spiel ist einfach so gestaltet worden, als wäre das halt quasi so gerastert wie die originalen Spiele. Also die Spielwelt ist auch immer noch so gerastert, deswegen gibt es auch ganz viele Routen, die halt immer noch so aussehen, als wären sie halt wie damals. Wurde ja auch haben wir bei RGE gesehen und dann laufen die da durch und das funktioniert aber nicht, weil du halt plötzlich einen dreidimensionalen Charakter hast.
The controls. You move in the classic grid layout with the D-pad, but can now also move gyroscopically with the joystick, though the game world is clearly still designed with grid movement in mind. Collisions with the free movement are more than a little off, and the rest of the NPCs in the world around you move in the grid anyway. The Poketch didn't translate away from the DS very well either. It's slightly more manageable in portable mode, but to be able to use it properly you have to full screen it, not allowing you to use it on the fly, and using apps like the dowsing machine in dock mode is a massive pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah,
but probably the most touted feature of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is the Grand Underground, a vast and honestly well needed overhaul of Sinnoh's Underground, turning it into a sort of hybrid of the original with some elements of the wild area from Sword and Shield. I wouldn't go out of the way to say that it's revolutionary or anything, but it adds an extra layer to the game, pun completely intended, being a feature actually worth exploring during the main story or in single player, as well as a nice way of introducing National Dex Pokemon, some even available before the National Dex is unlocked. Though I will say, why isn't the Sinnoh Dex the expanded one from Platinum? Yes, you can catch basically all of the added Platinum Pokemon through the Grand Underground, but would it be nice to have the expanded Dex not be hidden away like this, and to see more diversity in trainer battles? I bet they're just holding it off for Pogger's Platinum version. And you know, that's really the whole point of a remaster, to expand on the features in an older game.
Ich werde hier nebenbei ganz kurz eine Aussage tätigen. Wenn die jetzt noch ein Remake von Platin bringen würden, ich würde Pokémon quitten. Also ich werde es hier mal ganz kurz fett sagen, ne? Wenn ein Platin-Remake kommt, dann quitte ich die Hauptreihe. Also wenn ein neues Mystery Dungeon kommt, spiele ich sehr gerne. Aber wenn ein Platin-Remake jetzt noch kommt, dann quitte ich die Hauptreihe. Ich kaufe mir nie wieder einen Teil. Ich habe mir schon die Remakes nicht gekauft. Und ich habe mir Legenden Arceus vorgestellt, weil ich das Spiel interessant finde. Ich warte ab, wie das ist. Aber wenn jetzt ein Platin-Remake kommen sollte, dann quitte ich die Hauptreihe, dann scheiße einfach drauf.
To make it worth revisiting, just like they could have done by adding the entire Pokédex up until Generation 8. But why the fuck would they want to do that? Having a bigger Pokemon roster would really add to the endgame, especially features like the Battle Tower, but much like Sword and Shield before it, we're getting a stripped down National Dex with only Pokemon up until Gen 4. This is just one of the most obvious ways that they can expand on the original Gen 4 universe, but nope, original 493 only, fuckface. And don't give me that same high quality animations and Pokemon models bullshit you tried to pass in Sword and Shield. I don't see any legitimate reason that the Pokemon from Generations Beyond 4 were not added in other than laziness, a rushed release, or once more some vain attempt to make the game seem authentically Gen 4.
Ich würde sagen alles.
But I mean, Wooper is in the game, so I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? But to come back on the topic of inconsistency for a moment, there is nothing as horrendously inconsistent as this game's art style. I don't think it's a hot take to say that I don't.
Ich finde super, wie sie den Originalen treu geblieben sind und der Feuertyp nur von Top 4 nur 2 Feuerpunkte hat.
Don't like the look they've gone for. I get that they're trying to retain the chibi art style from the DS games, but the transition into 3D has done it no favors. The most criminal inconsistency is between Pokemon and people in the overworld. While people have extremely stylized
Ich glaube, ich kotze gleich. Wisst ihr, das sieht gut aus in Sprites. Das sieht nicht gut aus in 3D-Modellen.
Pokemon don't. And side by side, it just looks really dumb. Simply stylizing what Pokemon look like in the overworld would fix this 100%. Not to mention that the game is super insistent on zooming in all the time when it really shouldn't be. The style they've gone for is best viewed from afar, not up close, and there's some moments where a lack of animation looks so much
high quality animations
worse in the modern 3D style than it did back in the day. Several animations are just reused from Sword and Shield, some characters just aren't animated at all, and
Imagine. Ich will das nochmal sehen, wie die Charakter sich einfach nicht bewegt.
Animations are just reused from Sword and Shield, some characters just aren't animated at all, and basically all of the battle animations and models are unchanged from the previous generation. The infamous tail whip animation made sure to make a comeback. I won't say that the game always looks terrible, every now and again it looks great, but more often than not it looks horrifically outdated and rather confusing. And I get that the art style is always somewhat subjective, but if your argument is that it's literally the same as the original just in higher res, then tell me, do you prefer normal Minecraft Steve? Or
Minecraft Steve with RTX on?
like I said at the start of this video, this was a remake that really didn't deserve to be made. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are not games of any real depth or innovation, rather titles dependent on the legacy of their former selves to cash in a check and continue a bloated franchise on its descent into decadence. But what really gets me about these games is once again their inconsistency. They feel like they're a little confused with what kind of an experience they're meant to be. Sometimes they're trying to add those modern touches, and at other times they're trying their best to recreate a totally faithful experience. I feel like they're just stuck somewhere in the middle.
Hab ich ja gesagt, Mann, ich fühle den Typ irgendwie mega. Ich hab nach einer Minute irgendwie hab ich das Video gesehen, ich glaube, ich abonniere ihn jetzt einfach. Ich finde den irgendwie mega sympathisch. Ich will auch irgendeinen Akzent, wie gesagt.
And I wish that they just stick to their guns and pick a side. And at the end of the day, it only gets away with it because it's Gen 4. If this was a new Pokemon region with basically all of the same mechanics this game has, albeit with a few new enslavable creatures to collect, people would be calling for its head as much as they did with Sword and Shield. But I'm not going to pretend that this game either let me down or surprised me. It's a Pokemon game, and the remake at that. Those of us that bought this game knew what we were getting into from the start. And I loved returning to the generation in which my Pokemon journey began some 15 years ago, and what I wouldn't give to be able to return to this franchise with fresh eyes and a renewed sense of wonder and naivety. But I'm also not going to pretend that it doesn't concern me to see this series continue to get away with minimal effort and maximum profit. And although Arceus is just around the corner and promises something new, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are a testament to...
Ich finde auch, so ein Akzent macht irgendwie alles besser. Okay, das Felino hat mich abgeholt. Bro, der ist halt wirklich Felino. Hat Felino als Avatar mega geil.
Pokemon's continued reluctance to evolve into the franchise that we were always hoping that it would.
Nee, also ganz ehrlich, wie es ist, insane gutes Video. Was macht er nicht sonst für Sachen? Ach, generell so Commentary-Sachen. Finde ich aber nice, was gefällt mir eigentlich. Ja, nee, also ganz ehrlich, richtig gutes Video, kann ich euch nur empfehlen. 10 out of 10, auf geht's.